It's episode 6 of the Severe Setup, and this is a UFC 298 special. We are covering this card from top to tail, and my goodness, what a card it is. The Featherweight Championship is on the line. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria will throw down in Anaheim, California, in your main event. Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa is your co-main event. Ireland's own Ian Garry is back to take on Geoff, Neal. Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo, and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov fills up your main card for that pay-per-view. As always, the main man himself, Harry Powell, is with me. He's going to help me break down this card today for you guys. We'll take a quick look at the prelim section. A couple of interesting fights on there as well, but all eyes, Harry, are on the main event. It's a big one. About as much of doubt that we've ever had surrounding Alexander Volkanovski coming into this fight, but you know, not necessarily from us, but from the general masses, we shall say, after suffering that knockout loss in his last fight against Islam Makhachev, coming back down to the 145 division to take on an absolute killer in Ilia Topuria, 14-0, undefeated, and he considers himself somewhat a champion already. Ilia Topuria, the confidence is ripe. He believes that he is the man to take out Alexander Volkanovski at 145. No one has been able to do it inside the UFC as of yet, or ever, I think. I don't know. I think he has an early loss, but I don't know with Harry if it was at 145. So, you know, with Alex Volkanovski, I think the big story here is, can he rebound after that loss? He opened up and shared some issues that he had with his mental health. Obviously, the preparations heading into Islam Makhachev fight was not ideal. He said he was drinking most days before that, shouldn't have took the fight, and took it for a big payday, which, you know, he has every right to do. And it's a shame that he kind of does have to put himself into that position to kind of acquire a bigger payday. But a new challenge lies ahead, Harry. Ilia Topuria has been looking sensational, and is a guy who's been on our radar for many, many years on the way up. And now he gets his opportunity to take out one of the featherweight greats, to be honest. And my goodness, it's a matchup that I cannot wait to happen. Like, this is the next run of the three pay-per-views are unbelievable. 298, 299, 300. And I mean, it doesn't get too much better than Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. What are the feelings for you, Harry, coming into this one?
I am fucking bursting at the seams, if I'm honest. There are so many ways that we can try to dissect this fight. And I think that, firstly, Alexander Volkanovski's 3 losses, 2 at lightweight, both to Islam Makhachev, and then the third one way back in his career at welterweight, around 3.
Interesting. Yeah, and it was actually a similar enough head kick that that Islam knocked him out with as well. It was a left high kick got knocked him out early in his career, and a left high kick that knocked him out against Islam in the last time out. But yeah, continue. He has to bounce back from that. You know, it's not an easy thing to have to come back from. Late stage of his career as well, hitting to that magical age of 35, where, you know, a lot of fighters have success at the highest level in championship fights at the age of 35 and over, in between the weight classes, of course, of 125 and 155 in the men's division. This is an interesting one. Like, I'm buzzing for this as well. Excitement levels are very high.
Just through the roof, And I think for Alex, there are 2 ways that we can pass this, right? And just for everyone watching, we're 4 minutes deep. We could spend 45 minutes on this. And so if we do, strap yourselves in. All right.
100%.
Like, my first, and this is sort of one of the dichotomies of being a fighter, right? Which is, the UFC came to Alexander Volkanovski and they said, sure, look, we've got a week and a half. I think it was 10 days he had to prep for this. But here is a gargantuan amount of money in comparison to what you're making right now. What do you reckon? There is something that Conor used to say, and that's, at the end of the day, this is prize fighting. This isn't fighting necessarily. This is prize fighting. And now his spin on that was, obviously, he built the brand, he built the name, he built the whole thing, and then he got extremely profitable because of that. Grand. He earned loads of money. Alexander Volkanovski as well, I think, understands that this is prize fighting, but in a slightly different way. Like you said, he's 35 now. And so in the last couple of fights, those are the last couple of big paydays that he has had, pay-per-view points, championship belts on the line, these sorts of things. We know that they are profitable for fighters. If the UFC come knocking at your door and they say, this isn't just a one-off, let's say this is a 4-5 deal, 4-5 fight deal, whatever it is, and there is a couple of zeros added to that number, there's a couple of this, there's a couple of that, there's a couple of the next thing. You look at that and you say, it's similar to a fighter being given a short notice fight when they enter the UFC. You take the gamble because you understand that it's going to be profitable for you financially, irrespective. And you also know that you shoot for Islam Makhachev. If you lose, then you can always go back down to 145 pounds. So that's one way, right? And that's one side of Alexander Volkanovski's mind. The other side is the thing that he's been very vulnerable and very publicly available for, which is he sat on the sofa struggling for purpose. He sat on the sofa questioning who he is as a human, who he is as a man. Why? Because he doesn't know what he wants to do outside of fighting. Life is fighting. And so if there isn't fighting, or fighting is not available right this minute, there isn't a training camp right now, well, what do? We're sort of just bumming around, like enjoying life, whatever that means. And, you know, for somebody like Alexander Volkanovski, it is obvious that he likes activity, and he likes activity for a number of different reasons. So there is the other side of this, which is he is desperate for competition because it keeps him focused, it keeps him available, it keeps his mind in the game. And that is both a beautiful and very, very destructive thing to come with. Now, I think the thing that he has and will struggle to get over in this specific Ilia Topuria matchup is not the knockout necessarily. I think it's actually quite easy to justify that loss in your brain. No preparation, took it because of the money, took it because of a shot of glory, took it because, well, what else am I going to do? It's that bit where he says, okay, well, how do I now contend with a potential that I could go down to 145 and lose again? That's the interesting wrinkle to me.
It is very interesting because he's coming in at a time where he has been wanting fresh competition, I'm sure. We've been wanting to see him get fresh competition, and it doesn't get really any fresher than Ilia Topuria, Harry, coming in here. A guy who was coming in as about as brash and confident ahead of a championship fight since the man you mentioned previously as well, Conor McGregor. You know, he's been speaking a very big game. That confidence is high, his beliefs in his skill set. And you know, some of the kind of occurrences lately for Alexander Volkanovski, I feel is probably going to feed into that confidence for Ilia Topuria as well. So I think the accumulation of all of that stuff put together just makes this an absolute spectacle of a fight, where, you know, you have Alexander Volkanovski trying to prove that, yeah, he just had a blip in the radar. He is your 145-pound king. And you have this young, hungry lion in Ilia Topuria wanted to take all that away from him undefeated. He doesn't know what it's like to taste defeat in professional mixed martial arts. And it's going to be Alexander Volkanovski's job to try and make him taste something in there on Saturday night. And it'll be interesting to see how he reacts, because you look at the undefeated fighters have a kind of a double-edged sword in some ways, because you haven't tasted defeat and you can bring that confidence into you, but that confidence can slowly turn into something else when things aren't going your way very, very quickly. So I believe how both of these guys start this fight is going to be very important, and I believe round one is going to be fought at a hellacious pace to try and see which one of these guys is going to take the foothold in this fight. Yeah, confidence can turn to doubt if, you know, Alexander Volkanovski gets a good start here on Ilia Topuria. And Ilia Topuria is going to learn some things about himself. I'm sure Alex Volkanovski will as well. But the person I feel, obviously, at the stage of his career, who is going to learn the most lessons out of this fight, win or lose, is Ilia Topuria. what do you make of his confidence coming in here, Harry, into this fight?
Well, confidence generally is a mixture of two things. It's a mixture of skills and experience. Then you have results. The results are that Topuria has gone in, and outside of, oddly, the Jai Herbert fight, right?
Yeah, crazy.
Where he was getting battered for a little while and then managed to pick it out of the fire. He's basically steamrolled everyone, you know? I think the real blowout fight, or not the blowout fight, the sort of fight that really blew him up on the scene was actually the Ryan Hall fight. And that was because before then, we'd seen Topuria just use his hands, use his really crisp boxing, use these sorts of things. And Ryan Hall obviously comes in with a very different and dexterous game plan. He's looking to attack legs. He's looking to pull you into his guard game. And Topuria just out MMA grappled a superstar in the sport grappling world like Ryan Hall. And that, I think, was a massive notch to his cap. Now, I just want to go back just one second to the Alexander Volkanovski and ask you a question. Alexander Volkanovski strikes me as the kind of guy that thrives as being the underdog. And it feels like he, even whether it's externally true or just internally true, he can use that confidence of Ilia Topuria and say, oh, he thinks he's the guy. Okay, cool. No problem. Let me show you. And that is a wrinkle that I think, and I'm so interested to see when Alexander Volkanovski brandishes somebody like Ilia Topuria with that. What does Ilia Topuria do with it? Right?
Yeah.
It could be that he puts him away stone cold. And Ilia Topuria is looking up at the lights. Alexander Volkanovski's looking up at the lights, questioning what the fuck happened. Because there is also an element where he's taken a bit of damage in the Aslan Makhachev fight, comes back, takes a big knockout, and we're not having a huge amount of time between the knockout and now. And that is certainly something that I'm concerned about for Alexander Volkanovski. But back to your point on Ilia Topuria, tell me a reason why he shouldn't be confident. You know, I find it very difficult to find a reason why he shouldn't be confident here.
Oh no, I completely agree with his confidence. A lot of people, they might be getting a little bit tired of it or anything like that, but we had the same with Connor, and we've seen what happened with all of that kind of stuff. Like with the thing about the confidence and speaking out about your confidence is that if, like you said, he pulls it off against Alexander Volkanovski, this is going to be absolutely phenomenal. And he'll tell everybody, I was telling you all along. And, that added to the magic of the rise within Conor McGregor. And, on the other end of the stick, if it doesn't work out for him, he'll be humble in defeat, I'm sure. But, that's going to be kind of a bigger thing to kind of come back from, because you are that outspoken. That human nature wants to laugh in your face when you tell them that you're going to do something and then you don't do it, and especially in mixed martial arts, we have that happen a lot. So that will test his character, that will test his demeanor coming into his next fight. Because I think if he wins in this fight here, I think we're off to the races. It's definitely the Ilia Topuria era in that terms, because the confidence is going to be there in abundance. The belief is going to be there in abundance. We're likely going to see the Alex Volkanovski fight again if this was an Ilia Topuria win. So look, I don't hate anyone for being confident. I think it adds to the intrigue of the fight, and I'm very, very curious to see. It's easy to say it, and lots of people have said it. And we always tend to go and relate everything along these lines to Conor McGregor. It's the easy thing to do, but it's also the most prominent and the most kind of successful person that we have seen who talked himself and believed in himself and went out and actually did it. Now, there's other people that has talked the talk, but they've not been able to go out and walk the walk as well. So we're going to find out that about Ilia Topuria. Confidence is a thing that you need to have when you're training. I think it comes from preparation as well. You mentioned skill set and work, and the preparation that you have and the results that you get from that preparation, which have been very good so far. But this is the ultimate test. And whilst Volkanovski does have that bee in his bonnet to want to prove everybody wrong, that will add an extra wrinkle onto him coming in here in his confidence. And, you know, it's either going to be a good time or it's going to be a bad time to face Alex Volkanovski. And we're not going to find out what if it is going to be good or bad until they get in there on Saturday night. So when they do eventually get in there, Harry, when they touch their feet on the canvas, what are the main kind of points that you're looking at coming in when these two are going to face off? If I can set you up, maybe. I feel the distance game in this fight is so important, and we're going to talk about this in another fight down the line as well. In actually, I'll just say it, Geoff Neal versus Ian Garry, I feel is going to be huge in the distance battle as well. You're worried about getting hit. You're worried about getting knocked out. Well, don't go in there and get hit. You're not. If you're Alexander Volkanovski, you are not going to want to fight in the pocket against Ilia Topuria. That's where he does his best work. That boxing range, he's primarily a boxer on the feet. Doesn't throw. I mean, I watched back a good few fights, Harry, and I didn't really see him throw any leg kicks at all. And that, to me, you know, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it works until it doesn't work, and maybe it will work for the rest of his career. We don't know that yet. But if you're Alexander Volkanovski, I feel you've got to fight this fight on the outside. Ilia Topuria also a pressure fighter coming in here. Well, guess what? Alexander Volkanovski has been in there with Max Holloway, who is a pressure fighter as well. So he kind of has the recipe to deal with these guys who are moving forward as well, somewhat. Now, the thing that Topuria will have, I think that Max Holloway didn't have going in there, is that one punch knockout power, which he can put your lights out in an instant. And Max does have power, but it's more an cumulative damage. And I think the calf kick here is going to be important. Will the grappling come into play? Like, those are the big questions that I have coming in here now. And we haven't seen Ilia Topuria. We've seen glimpses of it against Ryan Hall, but Ilia Topuria came in here primarily as a grappler who developed into his striking game, kind of building up his career into professional ranks. So with all of that bundled into one, Harry, lots of things that are brought up there. Where's your mind at when it comes to tactics, advantages, disadvantages, and what these guys should be doing when they do step in there on Saturday night?
So, for me, this is the first time in the 145-pound division that Alexander Volkanovski has fought a modern, complete MMA fighter, especially at the highest level. Yair Rodriguez, very much a striker. Max Holloway, yes, he is a well-rounded MMA fighter, but a complete MMA fighter, I'm not sure. Fights slightly less well going on the back foot. Fights slightly less well when he's forced to grapple a little piece. He can grapple, right? The submission threat is less. His ability to develop ground and pound into submission offense and positional damage, submissional dominance is less than Ilia Topuria. I look at Ilia Topuria as somebody that can just do everything. Now, Alexander Volkanovski has fought a complete fighter in Islam Makhachev, but that's obviously a higher weight class, and so there are very, very different variables when it comes to that. Alexander Volkanovski, I think, one of his favorite things to do in fights is to find out what somebody's strength is and then beat them there. Alexander Volkanovski also likes to threaten and draw you into your favorite games by making you doubt what your abilities are. Ilia Topuria doesn't have many holes in that game. He can grapple very, very, very well. We've seen it. He melds top grappling, his scrambling, his positional dominance with damage, and that's fantastic. And as you've said, when he's on the feet, he hits like a fucking Mack truck. Now, Volkanovski, on the other hand, loves to be pressured. Why? Because his footwork is incredible. He hides his center line absolutely beautifully for the most part. He has a gorgeous, really, really, really cultured jab and check left hook. He works the body really well. And he has a really thudding low kick. Ask Max Holloway. Now, you mentioned about the grappling. I think if Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski happened prior to Islam Makhachev, there would be a very, very, very different outcome when we get
I think so.
the grappling. The priority with which Alexander Volkanovski placed on not necessarily stopping the grappling, but countering the grappling and using that grappling to really, really, really be able to get to a position of safety and or reversal proved unbelievable amounts of dividends in that fight against Islam Makhachev. We have never seen somebody survive the grappling and even have some offensive moments himself, like Alexander Volkanovski. Obviously, Arman, sorry, you can put up an absolutely fantastic performance against Islam Makhachev's grappling, but ultimately lost similar to Alexander Volkanovski. Now, if we go back then to Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega, Alexander Volkanovski was caught in two very, very, very deep submissions against Brian Ortega. Now, don't get me wrong, he defended both of them excellently. Props to his corner of Craig Jones and those guys prepping him and getting him ready. And obviously, he's a tough motherfucker, and so it's definitely not easy to submit him. But Islam Makhachev got absolutely nowhere near a submission of any form whatsoever. And so I wonder, Alexander Volkanovski brings that into this specific performance. What happens when Ilia Topuria grabs hold of him and it's not as easy as we thought it was? What happens when
it's the strength advantage, I think, in where, you know, raw grappling skills may go to Ilia Topuria, but like you can probably speak to this a lot better than what I can. But when you have a little bit of a strength advantage there, you know, you can strength your way out of a lot of positions. You can use your strength to kind of manipulate some positions down on the mat as well. And that's where, you know, when you're looking at the grappling exchanges here, I do believe that Alexander Volkanovski is going to be the stronger of the two in those positions. Would you kind of feel the same?
Maybe. Now,
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure, I guess, but
right, because there's also different types of strength, right? Ilia Topuria is going to have that mechanical tightness, that mechanical strength, that isometric strength. But I know that, you know, it's kind of a bit of a meme now, but it's a very, very real thing that Alexander Volkanovski used to play professional rugby at way over 200 pounds. And so there is a bone density difference. There is just a mass difference. And his body is so used to moving so much more mass than he is right now. Those strength transitions and those strength benefits don't just go away, right? Especially because Alexander Volkanovski has stayed in professional sport for this long, specifically a sport where strength is such a massive factor. The other big wrinkle I have here is, what does Ilia Topuria look like over 5 rounds when he can't get the finish, when he can't dominate? What happens when Alexander Volkanovski continues to be in his face? What happens when Alexander Volkanovski continues to try to drown him? Because in that first Islam Makhachev fight, Alexander Volkanovski at the end was the fresher fighter and was making Islam pay. Now, does that translate back? Because this is the other wrinkle, and again, we're just wrinkling and wrinkling and wrinkling. We'll look
full of wrinkles. It's like we're after taking a bath here, so we are full of wrinkles.
Exactly. Like, this is the first cut to 145 that Alexander Volkanovski's made in a little while. How does that look? What does that do to his body? What does that do to his gas tank? Does his body remember how to do that as easily as it did before? I don't know. There's just
it's not too long, but I do agree, fluctuating up in that way. He last made 145 in July of last year, but
okay.
I think, you know, it's not necessarily, I agree what you're saying in certain terms, but it's that when you're going up, when you're going down all the time, and that weight is fluctuating. We've seen that affect fighters in the past for sure, but yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about his gas tank. I think he's going to want to set a pace for that reason, what you were saying, to bring Ilia into deep waters here. But you know, what do you think that Ilia Topuria sees in Alexander Volkanovski's game that he feels he can take advantage of? What do you believe is stemming this confidence coming into this fight? Because we've been championing, like, I mean, there's this level of doubt as how fickle MMA can be sometimes, but we were championing Volkanovski, that's just 6-7 months ago, as being, you know, number one, number two pound for pound in the world. This like amazing guy who's just was almost very hard to figure out. Like since I've started covering mixed martial arts, Alexander Volkanovski has been one of the most difficult fighters to analyze for me personally. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but it's just he has just such small tendencies that really, really are effective in there, and it's just like some basic stuff that's almost seems too easy to analyze, but some things that he does very well. But there's obviously, I mean, there's obviously other things that we're maybe not seeing, and definitely that I'm not seeing in his game as well, that has him, you know, this long reigning champion in the 145-pound division. I'm curious as to what you kind of think about that. Like, are we being kind of too kind of reliant on that last performance, his mental state? And, you know, this could be a coming out and y'all must have forgot kind of performance from Alex Volkanovski too at the same time.
Well, this is why I made my pick, right? I get the feeling. Now, again, this could be a wild statement. It could come back to bite me in the ass, but I get the feeling that Elliott Topuria isn't even thinking. He's not thinking logically about that he's fighting Alexander Volkanovski. He's thinking, I'm Elliott Topuria, I'm undefeated, I'm a fucking monster. It doesn't matter who you put in front of me, I'm going to fucking destroy him. He's thinking like a fighter, he's thinking like an athlete. And the more self-talk, the more he believes what he's saying, right? He goes in the gym, and I'm sure he fucking decimates his training partners. Decimates them. He's almost certainly the best guy in the room on most days, right? You don't go undefeated in the 145-pound division without being something supremely special. Now, Elliott Topuria is obviously undefeated in the 145-pound division, but he has not been fighting the number one contender for the last little while. Alexander Volkanovski has. Now, I will preface with what I'm saying with every prime has to end. Every prime has to end. And I think when Alexander Volkanovski is said and done, we will actually have realized that we underappreciated what he was doing prior to getting the belt, right? But we'll come back to that. I think that Elliott Topuria doesn't even care what Volkanovski brings to the table. His team, this is the type of person that I think he is. His team prep him, and he goes in and he's just Elliott Topuria. Now that is unbelievable when it works, because the level of confidence that you're able to go in and flow with is 100% beautiful. But like we touched on at the very, very start, Alexander Volkanovski is an elite level fighter, an elite level fighter. I agree entirely with your analysis point, because it's very much similar to when you watch somebody like Lionel Messi. He does something with the ball, you see what he does, and you're like, I can watch that 100 times and I don't know what he did.
Yeah, 100%.
There is something happening there, whether it's with his eyes, whether it's with the energy of his body, whether it's with just the way that his body is contoured, that you would not know unless he's in front of you. And it's the same with somebody like Lionel Messi. I'm sure it's the same with somebody like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or any of these, Tom Brady, whatever it is. There are small, tiny, minute nuances that make fighters panic. And that's what we have seen for the most part with somebody like Alexander Volkanovski. I also think stature, size, physique, and just the way that he fights all come cumulatively together in order to make who he is and what he is. Now, what does Elliott Topuria see in Alexander Volkanovski's game as a weakness? Well, he sees that if Islam Makhachev can get to Alexander's back, well, he didn't do anything from there. I'm going to choke him. I'm going to make sure I choke him. Oh, Brian Ortega got hold of his neck. Brian Ortega put him in a triangle. I could smash Brian Ortega. I can do the same thing to him. Oh, Alexander Volkanovski rolled off the couch and got head kick knocked out flat. Say less. It means his chin's gone. Right? These are the things that are going to be running through Topuria's head. He's not this undefeated, unbelievable, like pound for pound, top of the fucking food chain fighter. He's a man. And I'm the man to beat him. That's his thinking.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm reading. I'm reading that it's very, very much the self-talk. It's very, very much the, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to play my game plan. That's dangerous and wonderful at the same time.
Dangerously wonderful, one might say. 100%. And look at, yeah, just to round up my final thoughts, you mentioned, there is going to come a time where Alexander Volkanovski is going to be got at, whether it be at 145 again. There'll be a time, let me kind of rephrase that. There'll be a time where Alexander Volkanovski puts in a good camp, comes in well prepared to a fight, and loses that fight. He has the excuses coming into his last Islam one. That's going to make him, a lot, like you said, a lot easier for him to process that loss. There will come a time where he does put in the ultimate amount of preparation. He is feeling in tip-top shape, and there'll be a time where he'll be on the microphone saying, no excuses, I came in 100%, I just wasn't the best guy on the night. I don't think that that's going to be on Saturday night myself. I think he still has just enough in him to get past this challenge. And I think it's the perfect challenge to be able to get over as well in an undefeated guy. It's just has all this, an opponent like Ilia Topuria has all the ingredients to get you up for a fight after you've suffered a knockout like he did against Islam Makhachev. All of the confidence, all of the, disrespect in some regards, we should say, from Ilia Topuria in the way he's speaking about Alexander Volkanovski, and I don't mind it. That's disrespect is a part of this fight game at times. But all of that will feed into Alexander Volkanovski, I feel, coming in here, and I'm very excited to see how he faces up to this task, and even more excited to see how Ilia Topuria faces up to this task. And I think this will be a fight that will be fought at a heavy pace early on. We're going to have lots of footwork battles. We're going to have a big distance battle. Alexander Volkanovski is going to be wanting to kind of take up the center of the cage. Ilia Topuria is going to be wanting to take up the center of the cage. I believe the person who does get that kind of main area inside of that threshold and the center of the cage is probably going to be the one who will win this fight. I think it's going to be Alex Volkanovski. I'm curious to see. He has fought on the back foot at some times as well against Max Holloway, so he could switch it up. He could kind of turn it around. But I think this is going to be a fight that will be won and lost in the later stages of the fight. And I think once it gets past round 1, round 2, I feel going into the later stages in the second half of this fight, you might have some doubts that are creeping into Ilia Topuria's mind. And if I'm wrong, well, you know what? We're in for an exciting ride with Ilia Topuria, and that's the beautiful thing about this fight as well. Yeah, I think Alex will take this by decision. I know that you fancy Alex to get him out of there in the later stage, and it's a good call. I can't argue against that at all. I think Ilia will have enough tenacity. I can see that enough hunger in him, where I don't believe he's a guy that is definitely not going to quit. So, unless Alex Volkanovski hurts him badly, which he can do, it'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to go to the decision myself, but what a fight! What a fight! This is up there and can be shaping up as one of the fights of the years. Any final thoughts before we move on to the co-main event, Harry?
Final thoughts, and I'll be quick. So, I think Alexander Volkanovski is going to come out a completely different fighter every single round. He's going to have a game plan for adjustments, and he will make adjustments on the fly. We have not yet seen Ilia Topuria be forced to make adjustments on the fly outside of the Jai Herbert fight. We must remember that Jai Herbert fight was 2 years ago. Less than, right? Since then, he went out and he decimated Bryce Mitchell. Fair play. Bryce Mitchell, not a striker, one-dimensional fighter. And then he beat the fucking brakes off Josh Emmett 6 months ago. Now, Ilia Topuria is coming in against a master game planner. He's coming in against a complete fighter. And I feel that what will happen is Alex will come out first round. He might entertain a fast-paced, he might entertain a whatever. And I think he fights on the back foot round 1. Round 2, he's going to fight on the front foot. Round 3, he might enter in some grappling exchanges. He might try and push Ilia Topuria up against the fence a little bit, try and make it a bit dirtier, a bit grimier, a bit grittier. Rounds 4, I think Ilia Topuria gets a little bit tired. I think Alexander Volkanovski can find that chin. I think the calf kicks start to eat up. They start to add up. They start to cause Topuria some problems with the footwork. He's starting to question where we are now. And we've seen Ilia Topuria hurt, wobbled, and dropped multiple times. Now, he's tough, don't get me wrong. But if I had a fighter pick of when a fighter is wobbled, who's going to finish them, Jai Herbert or Alexander Volkanovski? You fucking know who I'm picking, right?
Too right.
And so my overarching thoughts here is that Ilia Topuria will be a 145-pound champion one day. I just don't think it's Saturday night.
100%. Very well said. I tend to agree with that assessment as well. Moving on to the co-main event, Harry. Another guy who's wanting to prove himself is Robert Whittaker after coming out and being defeated against Dricus du Plessis. A result that looks a hell of a lot better now, if we're being real. At this day and age, obviously, now Dricus is the champion in the middleweight division. Coming in against Paulo Costa, who, in my opinion, is looking in as good a shape as I've ever seen him coming in here, looking very lean. I think the big problem with Paulo Costa was always, how big he was and how much he struggled to get down to 185. He looks like he's come into this fight in fantastic condition, and you can see a fighter and you'll kind of know by looking at him. It's like, you can see, geez, this guy's got a little bit to lose, and that was always the way with Paulo Costa. So he seems to have, I don't know, I haven't heard him speak about it all that much, but he probably jinked up his preparations a little bit and is coming in not blowing up as much and coming into camp probably in a lot more of a leaner and a less weight, which means he won't have to work as hard to get the weight down, which means he can kind of spend more time on skill acquisition as well. And he himself is coming in after a good win against Luke Rockhold, but also Luke Rockhold was a shadow of his former self in this as well. So speaking of looking a shadow of the former selves, Robert Whittaker kind of looked a shadow of his former self against Dricus as well. And was that an off night, or was that an accumulation of years and years of damage and hard work and training and fighting at the highest level inside the UFC? We won't find that out truly, I don't think, until Saturday night. But I think that's a point that really is a focal point in this matchup between Whittaker and Costa, is that, can Whittaker produce I think we'd be reaching for the stars a little bit if we were expecting him to kind of get to the levels he once was capable of when he was the champion, because he's been around for quite some time. He's been fighting a long time. He's 33 now. He's coming into the end of his career, and you always lose a step as well. So what's your assessment? What do you think that we're going to see in there on Saturday night in the co-main event? A very, very intriguing fight. Very curious to see how this one goes down. I think if Whittaker can bring back some of his glory days, I think he has enough fight IQ and enough skills to kind of take Paulo Costa out here. But maybe we're seeing a rejuvenated Costa coming in here. Maybe the changes that he's made has been positive, and he has a point to prove. I think he could come in, he could nab a win here and try and sneak in for a title shot against Dricus. I think that was his plan. And look at Robert Whittaker. He has been having doubts about whether he wants to fight in recent fights. We have heard him speak like that, and that's always worrying for me to hear. But I tell you, he's never one to turn away a challenge anyway, and this is a big challenge that he's going to be facing in Paulo Costa on Saturday night. Curious to hear your breakdown of this one, Harry.
I think Paulo Costa may be one of the most overrated fighters we've had in a long time in the UFC. And I think that this, for Robert Whittaker, that's well put together, mentally available, and anywhere near his prime, is an absolute decimation. Robert Whittaker is a far, far, far better grappler. I think his entries into the pocket are far cleaner. Paulo Costa is just a big hitter. That's what he is. He looks great, he talks, and when he hits people, they go away. But he's not a good fighter, right? Marvin Vettori sort of got stuck in the game plan of just box with him, be defensive, just box with him. And it makes Paulo Costa look better than he actually is, right? I think that if Whittaker is anywhere near a level that we want him to be at, or we expect him to be at, he destroys Paulo Costa. But if he's not, we could see something pretty bad happen to Rob Whittaker. And I think that this is the UFC asking Rob Whittaker that question. And that question is, are you still elite level competition in this middleweight division? Because this is probably the easiest fight in and around that elite level competition for Rob Whittaker's specific style to go out and prove, yes, I am still here, right? Because whereas with Dricus du Plessis, obviously Dricus du Plessis is somebody that moves a lot, really dives into, really explodes into the pocket, whether that's with shots, whether that's with double legs, whatever. Paulo Costa doesn't really do that. Like, you can make Paulo Costa stand in the center of the cage and do nothing but throw big swings if you want to, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a big kind of proponent in this fight as well, is getting Bobby Knuckles to try and come in and draw Costa into what he perceives to be a war. But Robert Whittaker will be one step ahead and trying to make him swing and miss and trying to drain that gas tank a little bit as well. And I'm kind of along the same lines with you, where the one worry I have coming in about Robert Whittaker here, Harry, is that he seemed to have wilted a little bit against Dricus du Plessis, and we'd not seen him do that inside the octagon. Really, look at he's been clipped before, he's been beaten inside the octagon, but we've never seen him kind of quit or wilt in there, and it seemed that happened against Dricus du Plessis. Now, I know maybe there were some things going on in his head, but he has been speaking about going out there and wanting violence, and he's coming for blood, and he's coming for the knockout. So maybe it was that loss to Dricus du Plessis where he was probably disappointed in himself the way he performed. He probably felt that he could kind of showcase a better level of ability on a different night, and this is his night to kind of come out and prove that as well. So I think it does have the recipe for a good solid win for Robert Whittaker here. I think with a guy like Paulo Costa, who does have big powers, you got to be a little bit careful. You don't want to be losing 2 fights in a row at the top of the middleweight division. So I couldn't really see Robert Whittaker coming out here and getting into a big war trading punches here, because I think that's going to be silly. I think he's going to try and use his footwork, his distance control to kind of come in and come out a little bit. I think we'll see calf kicks a lot. I think when Paulo does close the distance,
It's the stamp kick. That's what we're going to see.
Yes, yeah.
Stamp kick to the top of the knee.
100%. And I think if Paulo Costa, which he will be trying to do when he closes the distance, I can see a lot of clinch work from Robert Whittaker trying to nullify that distance control, putting him up against the cage and finding that separation as well. And yeah, it's kind of like these top 3 fights that we have on this card is all kind of similar, where it's like we're talking about Volkanovski not getting too involved in the pocket with Topuria. We're talking about Robert Whittaker not getting too involved in the pocket with Paulo Costa. We're going to be talking about Garry not getting too involved in the pocket when he takes on Geoff Neal as well. So it's crazy that, it might sound like simple or lazy analysis, but it's not really. It's just these are the style of matchups that we're facing on a particular night. Yeah. Anything else that you want to add on to this one, Harry? This is a pretty easy one to analyze for me, to be honest. We know Paulo Costa's game is pretty simple. He wants to walk you down. He wants to land those big shots. He's got a dangerous left hook, got a good right straight. He's going to want to keep this fight standing. I think Robert Whittaker will have the option of taking this fight down as well, and what you can do against a big hitter when you have a guy that wants to throw at 100% at you, you can level change and you can use that to his disadvantage, which will probably shut down Paulo Costa's game altogether, which will probably make him hesitant to throw in rounds 2 and rounds 3, and will probably see Robert Whittaker get his arm raised at the end of this. That would be kind of my prediction on how the fight might go. I think the loss will be a good thing for Robert Whittaker, but I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the UFC knew what they were doing when they gave him this matchup in Paulo Costa. Not a super dangerous opponent, just a guy where he's just have to make sure he's going to have to cross his T's and dot his I's and make sure he doesn't get into any kind of silly positions or situations in the fight.
Yeah, agreed. Robert Whittaker should, and we have seen him have answers for everything that Paulo Costa can throw at him. The big analysis question is he that guy? Is he still that guy? Because if he is, he wins, and he wins handy. If he's not, he could get drawn into a Paulo Costa war, and that's not good. Or he just gets blammed, and that's not what we want either, you know.
We definitely do not. We definitely do not. Interesting co-main event, and the drama keeps on coming. Ian Garry, Geoff Neal, in the 170-pound division. Give me all of this. Give me all of this on a packet of crisps. I love this fight for Ian Garry. I think it's a fantastic stylistic matchup for Ian Garry, and obviously he's going to have to be careful. The big thing coming in here is how is his mentality with everything that's been going on in recent months. He seems wound up. He seems angry. How can he channel all of that going inside the octagon? Because if he gets too loose in here, we've seen him wobbled. We've seen him getting clipped before. And Geoff Neal does have the power here, Harry, to cause Ian Garry trouble. I listened to him speaking on TNT Sports, and he's fully aware of this. And he said it himself, is that, I'm taller, I'm longer, I have a better jab, and I can have better footwork, and I'm going to keep on the outside and just pick him apart. And I think if he utilizes that game plan, that's why it's a good stylistic matchup for Ian Garry, because he is a guy that has a great jab and uses his length well inside the octagon. And coming in against a guy like Geoff Neal, I feel Geoff Neal is going to find it very hard to get on the inside of Ian Garry with his jab and with his footwork. And I feel Geoff Neal will get frustrated here, because look, this is personal for him as well, whether he wants to admit it or not, with everything that has been going on with the t-shirt and all of that stuff. And it's an interesting stylistic matchup. Are you feeling the same as me? Are you feeling that this is Ian Garry's fight to lose more so than anything else?
My analysis for this is that this is a mental test for Ian Garry. You give fighters, as they come up through the ranks, especially if their sort of ceiling is championship level or very, very, very high in the division level, they have to have multitudes of tests, not just physical, but okay, what does he do against a wrestler if he's a striker? Or what does he do against a striker if he's a wrestler, right? What does he do against the journeyman? What does he do against the sort of gatekeeper of the division? What does he do against another young, up and coming, hungry prospect? What does he do against whatever? This one is what does he do when there's been lots of vitriol, lots of shit talk, lots of personal jabs thrown left and right? But what does he do when he's on a massive pay-per-view card and the next fight is a gargantuan one if he wins it? Because I agree entirely with, frankly, what Ian said. Both Ians. There we go. What the pair of Ians said, both on TNT Sports and right here on the SevereMMA YouTube channel, is this is a perfect matchup for somebody like Ian Garry to showcase who he is. He can keep the distance. He can use his jab. He can use his high kicks. Geoff Neal generally fights quite short anyway. His elbows are always quite tucked towards him, and he likes to really rotate beautifully on his shoulders and his right hands. And so he covers distance with that, but his frame and his physique is generally much, much, much smaller and shorter than Ian Garry's. And so he's going to need to cover distance in order to get there. So can Ian bait the distance? Can he bait the blitzes? Can he force Geoff Neal to have to square up into shots? Can he force Geoff Neal to keep on eating those teeps to the body? Can he force Geoff Neal to slow down on the blitzes with the leg kicks that we saw against Neil Magny? And I do question, does Ian Garry try and take this fight to the ground? Does Ian Garry try to say, actually, I came in as somebody that wanted to kickbox. I came in as somebody that wanted to do that stuff. You saw me against Gabe Green. I put him against the fence a bit. I tried to take him down a little bit. I tried to use those fights to sort of mix in and around my wrestling. I wanted to prove to myself and others that I wasn't just this striker. Well, does he offer Geoff Neal, even if he doesn't complete it? Does he offer him a level change? Get to his hips. He's been training with Charles Oliveira in the shooter box gym. He's been training with Damian Maia to sort of brush up and sharpen his grappling skills. I mean, does that make a play here, right? Because he gets on the mic and he says, "I'm not just a kickboxer, I'm an MMA fighter, and give me the fucking title."
We haven't seen his ground game all that much inside the UFC, and I think people are going to be genuinely surprised when they eventually do. And I think it's a valid point here, and it's an option that he definitely is going to have in this fight if he chooses to have this fight. Now, you know, he obviously has fun on the feet. He obviously enjoys kind of breaking guys down on the feet, but it's about getting the job done as easy as you can get it done. And there's no point playing with fire with Geoff Neal on the feet. I think Shavkat Rakhmonov, although he did get the finish, he did play with fire a little bit, and he ended up getting hurt. And the same thing will happen to Ian Garry if he's not careful here. The fact that he's down there in the shoot the box gym and doing that work makes me believe that we're going to see what his grappling game is like pretty soon. And I think we'll see glimmers of it in this fight. I wouldn't be surprised, and I think, if you wanted to put a few quid on something here, we called out Monty McCann for a submission. I think Ian Garry by submission in this fight mightn't be a bad call either. And I feel, it's tailor-made for him to go out there. Your assessment is right. It's more of a mental battle and how he can deal with it. He seems in good spirits. He seems in a good mental space. And look, emotions are going to be something that exists when you're a fighter. How you channel those emotions is the most important thing when you get in there. Yes, you're angry about everything that has been said and done over the last number of months. And yes, you want to punish Geoff Neal, but you cannot let that anger kind of take control inside the octagon, because when anger comes in, that means you get a little bit loose. You get a little bit overcommitted on shots, and you end up getting cool, calm, composed is where you need to be. Easier said than done. But I feel what Ian Garry is going to want to do is I feel he's going to piece him up on the feet in round 1. He's going to take him down in round 2 and probably get him out of there in round 2 by submission. And then the fun begins, really, doesn't it? Because like you said, it's monster fights. We'll talk about obviously the future, no pun intended, for Ian Garry on the breakdown show next week, of course. But look, we talk about how good Ian Garry is, right? I'll pose this question to you. And obviously at 13, I know he has not hit his ceiling yet. When you're looking at Ian Garry's game, where are some areas that you would like to see him improve or feel that he should be improving in?
I still don't think we know, because I still haven't really seen him tested. And what I mean by that is Song Kenan drops him. Fine. Ian Garry then cycles up to the next gear and absolutely destroys him. Ian Garry goes in against against Neal Magny, who was supposed to be the test of this, whatever, ran him over. I'm not sure that Geoff Neal is going to be the test for Ian Garry that really pushes him, really tests him, really gets to show us what he needs to work on. But the next one after that, maybe, it's very hard to say when you come out in second gear and then you get dropped. Fine. Right, whatever. Shit happens.
That's just being an inexperienced fighter. You learn that lesson. It's happened to the best of people. And Ian Garry had the luxury of being able to recover from that position and come back and win the fight. No, a couple of other fighters have not, where sometimes you do get clipped and it's lights out. And I think that lesson that he had against Song Kenan was a valuable lesson, because if he hadn't learned that lesson, it'd be even more of a danger in this fight, where you are fighting higher ranked opponents and the consequences of mistakes are kind of a lot more severe, I think, as you move up the rankings, for obvious reasons as well. But definitely agree with what you're saying there.
Right. And so Daniel Rodriguez ran through him. Neal Magny ran through him. Geoff Neal, I expect him to run through Geoff Neal as well, to be honest.
Me too.
And then what do we do? Do we do Shavkat Rakhmonov? Is it Jack Della Maddalena? Is it Sean Brady? Is it, insert fighter, right? Whoever it is it whatever? Because if he beats Geoff Neal, you can forget Vicente Luque. That's not happening.
No.
Which in some way will be great, because they can go back and train together if they want to, and it'll be all great and rosy and whatever. And, but
yeah, to be honest, I never really felt comfortable about Ian fighting. I love me, I love Vicente Luque as well as a fighter, and I didn't want to see him getting beat up, because that's what would have happened in that fight as well, to be honest.
Possibly. But, only those two people know what those training sessions are when they're sparring hard. But I would agree with that. But Ian is looking at this one and then maybe one more before a title shot, right? Or maybe one or two more, depending on what the landscape of the division is like. But his name is hot right now. People either want to see him win or they want to see him lose. They definitely want to hear him talk. They want to hear him say, whatever he's got on his mind. I think actually the stuff that's happened in his personal life and that's trickled over into the MMA space has made him more of an interesting product for many, many, many people. But yeah, if he can go out and just showcase who he is, I think the thing that he's done, which we called for before, was finish fights, was to take the bit between the teeth and actually go and finish fights. It wasn't to just counter and pick apart and win decisions. He's been the aggressor and he's looked to finish fights. And if he does that against Geoff Neal, that's a massive thing. And if he goes out and does it in style, that's an even bigger thing. And then I do want to see him tested, right? I'd love to not lose necessarily, but I would love to see him go out and beaten in some area of a fight and then be like, cool, that's the thing we need, right?
Yeah.
You just go out and blow people out of the water all the time. There's always going to be those questions.
100%. Very interesting fight in the 170-pound division. Very excited for that. A lot of interest going into that with everything going on with Ian Garry. Saturday night is the time where he can just prove all the doubters wrong. He could, whatever is said, and he seems to kind of, maybe him getting sick for the last one and not being able to perform, maybe the emotions were a little bit more raw for him then when it was all going on. It just seems to have calmed down with a lot of opinions and a lot of that shit talk that was happening from the MMA community. He seems like he's in a better headspace right now and more understanding, and has learned from that experience. And you're going to have to face that no matter what, what fighter you are. People are going to want to come at you, and he'll go out there and he could blow Geoff Neal out of the water, and people will still find something to criticize. Haters are always going to be there. It's up to him to try and just put them on the outside and do what he does best. And what he does best is when he's in there for 15 minutes or 25 minutes and the cage door closes and he fights. And that's where we see the true Ian Garry. So I'm very, very, very curious to see and excited to see Ian Garry go in there and do the damn thing on Saturday night. Moving on down, we shall blast through a couple of the rest of these fights. Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. Very interesting stylistic matchup, this one, Harry, because, you're talking about a guy in Merab who is his bread and butter is taking fights down, taking fighters down. He's done so. He's setting records, but he's coming in here against an Olympic level wrestler who doesn't really get taken down all that much. I think, you've said it time and time again. I think this is going to be a key in this fight, is that when you're setting records for takedowns, it means that people are getting back up. So do you want to call that an effective strategy? It has been so far. He frustrates fighters, but I don't think he's going to be able to do that against a guy like Henry Cejudo. And I think this will be an interesting fight that we'll probably see the winner being more successful in the striking department more so than the grappling department, because I think Henry Cejudo will probably feel he has the advantage on the feet. Now, has he slowed down a little bit? Maybe Merab will come in with a couple of new wrinkles as well. Wrinkle seems to be the word of choice for this show. But what are you thinking about this fight coming in, Harry?
The thing that I am so interested in is that Merab Dvalishvili uses gas tank as a weapon. And it's one of the primary weapons in his arsenal. I don't even think that, for the most part, the takedowns are for control. The more that I watch, the more that I study of him, I genuinely think it's just something that he and his body are so comfortable doing for long periods of time that he just drains people with them. Because if you choose not to get up, he'll just keep you there, right? Fine. But every time you have to get back up, you have to explode a little bit, you have to take a little bit of energy, you have to do this, you have to do that, and you have to do the next thing in order to get back up. And then guess what? Oh, he's put me back down again. Oh, he stripped my feet out. Oh, he's done this. Like a fucking hell. This is just disgusting, right? Like, when's he going to let up? And he's not. That's the answer. He's not. He's not going to let up. Now, do I think that Henry is able to counter those positions and re-wrestle and reshoot and retake Merab down? Yeah, sure. But for how long? How long does it take before Henry gets tired? Because we know that one thing, over 15 minutes, Merab Dvalishvili does not get tired. He just doesn't get tired. Now, we could see this if Henry comes in and looks anywhere near his former self. I think this is a relatively easy matchup for him. Right? I think he's quick. He lands well. That split stance, that long stance, he lands kicks really nicely. He's very, very quick into the pocket, very, very quick out of the pocket. He circles well. And obviously, we know about the wrestling caliber. Fine. But Merab hits hard. He's got great training partners. He's got a great team behind him for game planning. And he's got that absolutely disgusting gas tank. It's a very, very, very intriguing fight for me. If Merab wins this, it's title shot next.
It should be, and in reality, it should be title shot already. The fact that he's having to fight this one is strange in my eyes. But look at, I'm sure he's going to be excited at this opportunity coming in against former champion and Henry Cejudo, a guy he probably would have looked up to coming up in his career as well. And yeah, I'm unsure how I feel about this. You've kind of swayed me in towards a Merab win with your kind of analysis there, and kind of I feel. Look, he'll win, but he'll win ugly. And I think sometimes you just got to win ugly in there. And that's Merab's style. And I think it's more so not what Merab can do to win this fight. It's what Henry Cejudo can do to win this fight, because he's going to have to find a answer to that problem. Now, a lot of this noise, Henry Cejudo publicly kind of firing his coach somewhat, a very public kind of... what was that on the countdown show? He called him over and said that what was it? What's this guy's name? Captain
Eric Albarracin.
Yeah, who has been with Henry Cejudo for quite some time, is no longer his coach. So that was a very interesting kind of thing coming in here, that Henry is maybe looking to switch things up. Is it too late, do you think, in your opinion? Like, why do this so late into your career? Do you think it's going to make much of a difference? And how do you feel about how it was all laid out? I felt it was very weird. Like, we had a little conversation before we started recording. I feel that this was a decision that was made off camera, but they decided to have another interaction on camera for some reason. And you reckon there's somewhat mind games going on here, do you?
Possibly. Henry Cejudo called himself the king of cringe. I wouldn't put it past him for him to do this, and then Eric Albarracin walk him out at 298. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest. If he has done it and it is legit and it is whatever, then fine, fair play. If that's what you want to do, it's your prerogative to change your coaches around. But it felt staged to me. I think, Henry's talked all the time about how amazing Eric Albarracin has been for him, and what a coach he is, and what are this and what are that and what are the next things. So you don't just toss a man like that aside, not in that public manner. And so it felt as though it's either staged or it's one of those things that's done for content. Both feel weird, but if it has been done and it is legit, then for sure Henry's done it previously, and now he's sort of leaking that footage, publishing that footage, whatever it is. You don't cut a coach a week before a camp unless something incredible has happened. And we've seen it with fighters before, right? Even Ian Garry, he turned up to fight Jack Grant with no corner, and so it happens, right? Stuff happens. This is MMA. This is life at the end of the day. But I would be very, very, very shocked. Ian Garry said absolutely nothing about it. He just said, me and my team had a falling out and I've just turned up to fight. No problem. Team KF at the time didn't say anything about it. They just put a statement out to say we won't be cornering Ian. And then obviously, the fallout happened afterwards. But I get strange feelings about this one, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I when I started thinking about this fight, I was fancying Henry, but the more and more I think about it, I think this is Merab's fight to lose. I think he has that pace and can set that pace that I feel Henry is going to really struggle with in this fight, to be honest.
I've got you, haven't I? I've got you.
You have. You've changed. We've seen a live action change of mind here on the Severe setup today. So we haven't put in our official picks yet. Lots of things change on fight weeks, and we record these at the very start of the fight week, and I've come on here, and I'm sure you have as well, and said some things on a Monday, and then we're going to a Thursday. You're thinking different. It's a great thing about mixed martial arts. You can overthink things. You can hear things. You can hear. Sometimes I come on here and I have that. Like I said, I have these certain opinions, and when you start talking it out, your opinion formulates a little bit more, and it'll be an interesting one. I think this fight is going to go all the way. I don't think Henry is going to be able to knock him out. I don't think Merab is going to be able to knock him out. I think Henry's going to have to try and keep him off him, but like Merab is like a wet blanket in there. He just sticks to you. He does not give you any space. And I think that's going to be the end of Henry Cejudo. I think that Henry Cejudo loses this fight and likely retires inside the octagon after the fact as well. So,
Jason's just gone from Henry Cejudo winning the fight to the cunt retiring.
I know, what am I like? What am I like?
Fucking hell. What are we doing?
What a drastic change. You wouldn't see a pendulum shift like that in Coronation Street, I tell you. What am I thinking? Well, anyway, look at moving on to the start. What have you done? What have you done to me, Paulo? You're after completely
unbelievable.
That might have been the biggest kind of turn in the history of MMA analysis. I don't know, but anyway, Fluffy Hernandez versus your guy Roman Kopylov. It opens up the main card here. I really like Fluffy Hernandez as a fight. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion coming in here against Roman Kopylov. I never let you forget about the fact that Fluffy Hernandez beat Adolfo Vieira by submission. We could see that again here. Kopylov is a guy that has been on a good run inside the UFC over the last number of fights. 4 wins against not great opponents, if we're being honest. He's taken a step up here against Fluffy Hernandez, and I think it's likely going to be a step up too far, in my opinion, with Fluffy Hernandez. 3 wins in a row for him. Last one being against Edmund Shabazian, and yeah, I think that this is Fluffy Hernandez's fight. I really like him as a fighter. I think he's growing into and kind of coming into his prime in this fight, and it's a kind of a perfect matchup for him to set up. This is like the UFC's kind of way of seeing who they're going to push next, I believe, in the middleweight division. And I think, it's a fight that is really made for Fluffy Hernandez to kind of come in and make a stake a claim and start challenging top 10 opponents, and who's going to be the next guy to kind of make that push in the middleweight division. What are your thoughts on this? A lot of head shaking and expressions over there. You think that you don't think too much of Roman Kopylov as a fighter, Harry, do you?
I think he's shite. I think if Anthony Hernandez can keep his right hand up, he wins the fight. I think that he is stronger in the grappling department. I think that his striking is more varied than Roman Kopylov's. And I just think overall he's a bit of a better athlete as well. The 3 wins that he's put up, Marc-Andre Barriault, Josh Fremd. Okay, Josh Fremd's useless, but Marc-Andre Barriault is a solid fighter, well put together fighter. And the fellow you just mentioned, that I've already forgotten his name, that he just beat in the last one. Edmund Shabazian, of course. Now Edmund Shabazian's a sorry case. The SevereMMA podcast feel very, very sorry for Edmund Shabazian, but either way, he's a well put together fighter, and Fluffy Hernandez dealt with him. And so, yeah, I agree with you that I think Fluffy Hernandez is a really, really solid fighter. He is 30 now, right? Coming into that really, really nice sort of twilight zone between. It's not twilight zone. That like really, really nice zone where he's meeting his experience with his skills, with his physical and mental maturity. And so we've got some interesting years ahead of us with Fluffy Hernandez. He's not going to win a title, don't get me wrong, but he's going to be in and around potentially if everything goes well for him. And, I don't think the same of Roman Kopylov, who just spams left high kicks like it's fucking Tekken. And I think what will happen here is the more that Kopylov will throw those high kicks, Hernandez is going to catch him at some point, take him down and sub him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% with you. That I think we've seen Kopylov getting submitted inside the octagon before. I think that is a massive hole in his game, and very, very curious to see if he can kind of capitalize on that and make a push up that middleweight division. We'll see on Saturday night. Prelims, we'll try and rattle through these as quickly as we can. Of course, we're getting a little bit tight for time. Amanda Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern, your prelim headliner here. This is a tasty enough one too, Harry.
I agree. Sorry, you just caught me on the sneeze there.
Sorry.
That's fine. I think Lemos probably whacks Mackenzie Dern, if I'm really honest. I think Mackenzie Dern... Look, we have seen enough that Mackenzie Dern is not making the leaps in her striking as quickly as she needs to, and Amanda Lemos hits really, really, really hard. Can Mackenzie Dern get her down and sub her? Yeah, absolutely. But she has to get to her first. And I don't want to see Mackenzie Dern pulling guard here. I don't want to see Mackenzie Dern like diving on things and just jumping for stuff, because Amanda Lemos knows her way around that sort of department enough. Yeah, I don't like this fight for Mackenzie Dern. But in the same vein, if she does get it to where she's strong, it's a rough old night for Amanda Lemos. I just feel like Amanda Lemos is a little bit of a better athlete. And when Mackenzie Dern does get Lemos down, let's say it takes 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever, you have to work quickly. You know, you have to work quickly. And I don't know. It could be, absolutely, it could be that the Mackenzie Dern gets the win here, but I just feel like Amanda Lemos is going to beat her up on the feet enough before Mackenzie Dern gets there to do some real damage.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that assessment too much either. Like, you know, there's a possibility Mackenzie does get her down, gets her out of there but via submission early, but I think the longer the fight goes on, the more of a chance I feel Lemos will be able to kind of keep this fight on the feet. And obviously, if this fight is on the feet, I'd give Amanda Lemos an absolutely ginormous advantage up there, because we just have, like you said, we haven't seen those improvements, or Mackenzie Dern doesn't seem to be leveling up. In some cases, Harry, she's gone in there and took a backward step in her strike, and she's kind of showcased a little bit of a jump, and then it was non-existent in a couple of her other fights after that as well, especially in her loss to Yan Jianan. That I thought, you know, she wasn't great in that fight, but Jessica Andrade really kind of exposed her on the feet in her last fight. And, you know, Lemos is that kind of heavy hitting kind of striker as well, so it's not really good news for Mackenzie Dern. Marcos Rogerio de Lima against Justin Tafa is happening in the heavyweight division. We shall stop at the next fight, though, and that's Rinya Nakamura versus Carlos Vera. This, like, we've been talking about Nakamura, Harry, for quite some time since his appearance on the road to the UFC. This guy is special. This guy is getting the pay-per-view treatment. He's coming on a big card here. This is a big time for him to showcase his ability. 8-0 undefeated in the bantamweight division inside the UFC. Another exciting prospect here, Harry, for us to kind of sink our teeth into. And he has a good test in Carlos Vera, but I think a very winnable fight for him too, that being said.
Who gives a fuck? Just get him in there. Let me see him fighting. This fella is a really, really interesting player for me. And we have to, you know, he's 28, but at bantamweight, 28 is let's start moving, you know? And I think give him a couple more fights like this in and around this level, and then let's see him pushed. And fuck me, there is so much elite level competition at 135 pounds that we're not going to struggle in making absolute bangers of fights for him anywhere near the future. But sign me up with this fella. I think he's really, really good.
Yeah, if you've not seen Nakamura before, you want to kind of tune in early here and see this guy in action. He looks like a really special talent. And yeah, I bet you won't be glad. Or I bet you will be glad if you do choose to do that, I should say. 205-pound division, Ming Yang Zhang versus Bredson Ribeiro. That's a fight that's also happening. Josh Quinlan versus Danny Barlow at 170. Danny Barlow coming in here 7-0 against Josh Quinlan. We've seen Quinlan in there, you know, heavy hitter as well. Lost his last fight to Trey Waters. So, you know, that could be a potential banger. What I want to stop on, though, Harry, is the last two fights, and that's Val Woodburn versus Oban Elliott. Your fellow countryman here, the Welsh gangster, coming in for his UFC debut against the dangerous Val Woodburn. It's a good fight for him. You know, what are you thinking about Oban Elliott, and are you excited to see him kick off his UFC career?
I hope that Oban Elliott comes in here and fights smartly. And if he fights smartly, he comes in, he takes Val Woodburn down and he beats him up. Val Woodburn is a big old swinger. Big power in the hands. Obviously a bit of an athlete. Took his UFC debut on short notice up a weight class and looked undersized for that weight class. So good to see him get an opportunity back at his natural weight class. Fair play to the UFC. This is a good matchup for Oban Elliott in that they can do the war thing right? If that's what Oban wants to do, and there'll be fireworks, and then whatever happens, there'll be plaudits and whatever. But I would like to think that Oban is going to take this as seriously as possible. This is his entrance to the big show now. And if he can, I think he has the grappling advantage to take Val Woodburn down and beat him up. And I think that should be his route to victory, frankly. Mix in the big power on the feet, mix in some of the fadeaway shots, and then mix in some grappling and see where it gets him.
Yeah, I can't really say too much more on top of that, Harry. A good assessment there. And I think that is the most important thing here for Oban Elliott, is not to kind of get drawn in, not to get drawn into a kind of a firefight here. Fight smartly, use your grappling. Very effective when he does do that, Oban Elliott. And, if he does that, I think he gets the win. And starting off the night for us is a women's flyweight fight between Andrea Lee and Miranda Maverick. An interesting one to get us kicked off on the card. I think this is a good kickoff fight. Andrea Lee always in decent fights. Miranda Maverick has been making some good waves, a little bit up and down in her UFC career, wins and losses. She'll be looking to kind of put on a run. Andrea Lee, who has had the experience going in there with higher level opponents in the 125-pound division, lost her last 3 fights against those high level oppositions. She's getting a downgrade a little bit here, and Miranda Maverick is getting an upgrade on an opponent, and we kind of have this kind of two of these fighters meeting in the middle at certain stages of their prospective careers, and it's either going to be Andrea Lee who'll get the chance to fight that top level competition, or Miranda Maverick coming in here looking to try and take her place and get her shot against some of the elite level competition at 125. How do you assess this one, Harry?
I like the fight a lot, actually. I think Maverick has been unfortunate in that, she came up in and around that Blanchfield Barber type run, and the losses that she's taken. Jasmine Jasdavicius, I really like Jasmine Jasdavicius. I think she's a really good fighter. You lose to Erin Blanchfield. Sure, look, everyone's losing to Erin Blanchfield at the minute. And then Macy Barber was a very, very close split decision loss. You come out here, you beat up Priscilla Cachoeira, you beat up Shannon Young, you beat up Sabina Mazo, you beat up Gillian Robertson just before then. I think that this is a really, really solid test for both ladies. We know that Angela Lee has a strong Muay Thai background. We know that Miranda Maverick is that grindy wrestler, put your forehead in your chin type style. And so I like the fight for both ladies. We're going to see where Miranda Maverick has been able to add some skills to her game. We're going to see if Andrea Lee has been able to round out some of the holes in her grappling capabilities. But, for Andrea Lee is now 35 years of age. Miranda Maverick's still only 26, right? It feels to me as though the UFC are looking at this fight and asking Miranda Maverick, chuck us a win here, and then we'll get rid of Angela Lee, right? 4 fights on a skid. So, a good test for both ladies, though.
Absolutely. That gets us all wrapped up for the Severe Setup episode 6. If you like what you heard, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. A monster card this Saturday night. We'll be back on the Balance Breakdown to take a look at this in full next week. I'm excited. You should be excited. BJJ_Harry Powell is where you will catch that man's content, the Severe Setup, Speaker's Corner, and the Balance Breakdown, amongst other things as well. Take care, folks. Enjoy the fights when we see you again next week.